The Mission Went Wrong by tyuiopi, read by Rouge Monty. Rating, general audiences. Archive warning, no archive warnings apply. Category, M/M. Fandoms, Dr. Stone manga and Dr. Stone anime. Relationships, Asagiri Gen / Ishigami Senku. Stanley Snyder / Dr. Zeno. Asagiri Gen and Stanley Snyder. Asagiri Gen and Dr. Zeno. Characters, Asagiri Gen, Ishigami Senku, Stanley Snyder, Dr. Zeno, Kingdom of Science Ensemble. Additional tags, Stanley and Zeno are Gen's parents, established relationship, both of them, meeting the parents, kinda, not beta red, fluff. Summary, rewriting of chapter 149 and 151. But xenostan are Gen's parents. Notes. This is heavily inspired by the work by Dio the Invader, You'll Be in My Heart. Please check it out. I liked the idea so much I had to sneak a little of Sengen in. They speak English in the bold text. I will obviously be speaking English the whole fic, but if you would like to check out a podfic of You'll Be in My Heart, I also did that. But please do give both Dio the Invader and tyuiopi all the comments and kudos. Gen really valued his privacy, so when the others asked him about his past, he made up stories. Once he said he was an orphan and never had any family, and other times he talked about his millionaire parents and many siblings. This worked, and his friends stopped asking unnecessary questions. Unfortunately, the closer they were to America, the more he thought about his parents. Being completely honest, they weren't the best parents he could have had. Sure, they took care of him and provided him with everything he had ever wanted, but they weren't home often. Stanley traveled a lot for his job. He never said what he did, but it wasn't hard to figure out that he was in the military, while Zeno spent most of his time in the lab. Gen remembered coming back from school to a quiet and dark home, singing alone, eating alone, and waking up alone. That's why he wanted to work with people, to never be on his own again. When he was 16, he decided he wanted a fresh start and told his parents that he'll be moving to Japan to start his career. They asked why so far, but no one did anything to stop him. And that's just how it was in that family. Professional. He made up a stage name, Asagiri, and actually fulfilled his dreams. But now he's back in America, and he would be lying if he said he had not once missed his parents. "Hey, you all right?" a familiar voice asked from behind. "Oh, Senku-chan, no need to worry. I'm Ula-Terry fine." He smiled, but the other boy didn't seem convinced. "I mean, we found the corn in the river. Why are you so gloomy?" He put his hands on his hips. "You should be celebrating with the others to keep your facade up." He joked, but Gen knew that was Senku's way of being worried. He laughed. To the boat! Now! Take cover!" They heard Tsukusa's yelling from the shore, and a great few seconds later, they heard something that made their blood run cold. Gunfire. Senku grabbed him by the wrist and covered them with a metal hat to shield them from getting hurt. They were chaos outside and heard people yelling and running in every direction. Heavy smell of smoke was scratching him in the throat, and the loud noise of shooting didn't help with anything. He looked up at Senku's face only to find fear in his eyes. If that was how his composed boyfriend reacted, he understood that they were most likely in a situation without any escape. Gen grabbed his hand and squished it reassuringly. That was the only way he could hope now. After another very long seconds, the shooting stopped, and everyone started coming out of their hiding spots. After checking if anyone got hurt, chaos started again, but this time in the form of panicked teenagers yelling at each other. "I thought there were no people here! Did the United States really survive? No. Then how could there be an explanation for what we've seen?" "What is possible, however," started Yukio, "is that someone revived on their own, just like Senku." A whole group gasped and turned to look at each other with fear. "And that is the person growing the corn," continued Ryusui. Oh, this was bad. Until now, they never had an enemy just as smart, or even smarter than dear Senku. They had always managed to win with some amazing science since the weapons they made were on the spot. But now, whoever they were up against had the exact weapon as them. Knowledge. He turned in the direction of his boyfriend that had started chuckling under his nose. Worst case scenario, we're looking at a showdown against an evil scientist. He stopped to look at everyone. He tried acting confidently, but Gen could still remember the emotions painted on his face during the attack. Too bad for them. That's the one area where I won't lose. Pursue? Who? Gen asked, standing next to Senku, who examined his new toy that just found in the forest. Isn't it obvious? Our new friend, the pilot of the plane, he said without looking up. A whole cornfield could be lucky fine that didn't save us years of cultivation and propagation. Don't forget why we came all this way. The corn. I meant, he cringed, who will be doing the pursuing? And that's how Gen found himself in the forest with Chrome and Kohaku, walking right behind him, searching for the enemy base. They followed the sniper's footsteps, which was surprisingly easy, almost like, this forest is way different from the ones we see every day. Chrome was so excited at the opportunity to see something new. I don't know, forest like forest, shrugged Kohaku, but excitement was also written all over her. Gen was almost sure the enemy was luring them in. Something was very wrong. How dare they underestimate a mind genius like him? He locked eyes with Chrome, who understood the message in seconds. After all, the kid really had a bright mind. Hang back and allow me to take the lead. The boy nodded and put his arm in front of their friend to stop her without looking too suspicious. She seemed confused but didn't question anything. It was hard to figure out which direction he was being observed from, but he knew he was. With every few steps, he left a single petal of flower to mark the way for the rest of the tracking team. When he was far enough away, he ripped a scrap of cloth and held it high. Hello, is anyone there? Before he could do anything else, something huge landed right in front of him, pointing a machine gun in his face. He jerked back, however stupid that sounds, but he was still human and allowed to feel fear. Gen, the figure said. He should be terrified by that even more, but the way they said it confused him. Tone wasn't like the one he was mostly used to. It wasn't surprised or repulse or even admiration, but rather longing. Then the mask opened up, and Gen saw no other than Stanley Snyder, his own father, smiling with almost glossy eyes. He lowered the gun and made a few steps in his direction. There's no way, he mumbled, his own eyes turning glossy. Man put out a cigarette he was smoking and ruffled his hair. Boy couldn't help himself and started sobbing into his sleeves. We thought we'd never see you again. Zeno is okay? Stanley led them to their base. Gen forgot to leave flowers for Chrome and Kohaku to follow. Said base was way bigger than he had thought, not to mention cornfields, landing strip, and factories. The place they called home was enormous. It was a fortress with many towers, closely resembling castle from the 11th century, with such big theatricity. There were few people around. He counted no more than 40 of them. Zeno. A figure hunched over a table didn't move at all at the mention of his name, just hummed. Get ready to celebrate, Stanley smirked. That made the top scientist straighten up and turn around. Firstly, he looked at the taller man, but then his eyes met with Gen's, and he saw how his facial expressions changed into relief, and his lips curled in a shy smile. I see you found your way home. Was Japan really that bad? He smiled, making his way towards the two most important people in his life. The three of them stood in silence, looking at each other. It was nice to again be close to his parents after this many years of depending only on himself. They might not have been the best, but they were the only parents he ever had. No matter what, he still loved them. But it was time to address the elephant in the room. You know I'm glad to see both of you well, Gen managed to choke out between sobs. But I'm also aware you know I'm here as a negotiator, right? So professional, so elegant. Say what you need to say. Zeno sat down and crossed his legs. The boy took a deep breath and then felt an arm on his shoulder pushing him down gently on a chair that Stanley just brought into the room. "Why did you attack us?" He changed his tone to match the wave of emotion to his feeling and grinned. "We don't exactly have many visitors, and we only wanted to celebrate the first ones with fireworks." His father matched his way of speaking, and the smile he was wearing proudly melted into a neutral look he saw so often back in the old world. "My turn for question. Why is your group visiting the United States?" "Resources," he shrugged. "Our leader already has a plan for some new scientific inventions, but there are some things we aren't capable of gathering in Japan." "Your leader, you say? What's his name?" His eyes quickly skipped to meet Stan, who still kept an arm on Gen's shoulder, and went back to look at his son in the eyes. "Senku." He dropped his mask while his cheeks turned slightly pink and a genuine smile crept upon his lips. The three of them sat again in silence, but this time all had headphones in their ears, and a microphone stood on the middle of the table. They waited for the Kingdom of Science to pick up the phone. "What's the big idea, Chrome, you goof? You aren't supposed to call right back." Magna's voice sounded dumb and rough as ever. He looked at Stanley, who frowned, not understanding Japanese, and took out a new cigarette from his pockets. "Greetings. I take it this is your preferred frequency for communication?" On the other side of the phone could be heard slight gasps. Gen was also surprised. None of his parents spoke Japanese to his knowledge. "I apologize for my poor Japanese language skills, but I must ask to speak to your leader. Put on Dr. Senku for me." "Who do I have the pleasure to talk with?" Senku's voice carried throughout the earpiece, and Gen couldn't help but smile. So much happened in the last few hours, and he had already missed those red eyes that looked with passion and curiosity at everything around them. Rough but gentle hands and those wild hair. "Dr. Zeno, Gen told me so much about you." A grin crawled upon his lips. The tone he used sounded like a threat in itself. "What did you do to him?" "I can assure you he was perfectly fine." "I find that hard to believe." "Hi, Senku-chan. I'm all right. I'll tell you everything when I come back home." He jumped into the conversation. If that had become some stupid misunderstanding, he would have ripped his own hair out. The scientist covered the microphone with his hand and looked at him with a look of betrayal all over his face. "You plan on going back to them?" Came out almost like a whisper. Those words caught the attention of the other man. He dropped a half-smoked cigarette and slammed his hands onto the table. "Gen, you just came back. You have no idea how we missed you around." "I had to. They need me there." Senko needed him back. "Sorry to interrupt, but we heard everything. What the hell is going on there, mentalist?" He could imagine how confused his friends must be. Enemies who shot in their direction not even a day ago are making a scene, almost throwing a tantrum about someone who is supposed to be spying on them. What a grotesque scenario. "Oh, my dear Senku-chan, that's not how I imagined you meeting my parents." I always enjoy xenostan being Gen's parents' fix, and I will try and read whatever I possibly can of them, either just reading for fun or having a fun creative project by turning it into a podfic. And thank you so much for tyuiopi. I don't think I'm pronouncing their name right, for letting me read this. And also do check out Dio the Invader's work, You'll Be in My Heart, which inspired this fic, The Mission That Went Wrong. Alright, have a good one, everyone. Goodbye!